Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jayan Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Astotar Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Astotar Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 5th day of January 2026 in San Diego, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the 9th canto, Liberation, 9th chapter, the dynasty of Angshuman, and beginning on text 34, and we'll be chanting text 42 together. So I'll just read this English to these texts. When the chaste wife of the Brahmin saw that her husband, who was about to discharge semen, had been eaten by the man-eater, she was overwhelmed with grief and lamentation. Thus she angrily cursed the king. O foolish, sinful person, because you have eaten my husband, when I was sexually inclined and desiring to have the seed of a child, I shall also see you die when you attempt to discharge semen in your wife. In other words, whenever you attempt to sexually unite with your wife, you shall die. 36. Thus, the wife of the Brahmin cursed King Saudasa, also known as Mitrasaha. Then, being inclined to go with her husband, she set fire to her husband's bones, fell into the fire herself, and went with him to the same destination. 37. After 12 years, when King Saudasa was released from the curse of Vasishta, he wanted to have sexual intercourse with his wife. But the queen reminded him about the curse by the Brahmani, and thus he was checked from sexual intercourse. Text 38. After being thus instructed, the king gave up the future happiness of sexual intercourse, and by destiny remained sonless. Later, with the king's permission, the great saint Vasishta begot a child in the womb of Madhyanti. That was his wife. Madhyanti, also known as Damayanti, right? I think they're the same lady. Madhyanti bore the child within the womb for 7 years and did not give birth. Therefore, Vasishta struck her abdomen with a stone, and then the child was born. Consequently, the child was known as Ashmaka, the child born of a stone. From Ashmaka, Balika took birth, because Balika was surrounded by women and was therefore saved from the anger of Parashuram. He was known as Nari Kavacha, one who was protected by women. When Parashuram vanquished all the Kshatriyas, Balika became the progenitor of more Kshatriyas. So he was a Kshatriya, but he's protected because he always surrounded himself by women, and Parashuram wouldn't hurt him. So he was the last Kshatriya left, and he became the progenitor of more Kshatriyas. Therefore, he's also known as Mulaka, the root of the Kshatriya dynasty. Text 41. From Balika came a son named Dasharat. I don't know if this is the same Dasharat as father of Ram. It's not mentioned here. From Dasharat came a son named Aidabidi, and from Aidabidi came King Vishvasaha. The son of King Vishvasaha was the famous Mahārāja Khaṭvāṅga. Text 42. Yo Devar Artito Daityan Avadhid Yudhi Durjayaha Muhurtam Ayur Gyat Vaitya Swaparam Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Muhurtamayur Gyat Vaitya Swapadam Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Muhurtamayur Gyatvaitya Sapadang Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Muhurtamayur Gyatvaitya Sapadang Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Muhurtamayur Gyatvaitya Swapadam Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Daitya Swapadam Sandhade Manaha Yo Devaratito Daityan Avadhid Yudidurjayaha Muhurtamayur Gyatvaitya Swapadam Sandhade Manaha. Anyone else here? Come on, Governor, you can do it. Yo devaratito daityan avadid judidurjayaha Mahortamayur Ghatvaitya Swapadam Sandhate Manaha. Chad, you gotta put your glasses on. Yo devaratito daityan avadin judidurjayaha Mahortamayur Ghatvaitya Swapadam Sandhate Manaha. Anyone online?
Yo devaratito daityan.
Yo devaratito daityan.
Adi judidurjayaha.
Avadi judidurjayaha.
Mahortamayur gyatvaitya.
Mahortamayur ghatvaitya.
Swapadam sandade manaha.
Swapadam sandade manaha. Okay. Yaha King Khaṭvāṅga, who? Devai, by the demigods. Artitaha, being requested. Daityan, the demons. Avadit, killed. Yudhi, in a fight. Durjayaha, very fierce. Muhurtam, for a second only. Ayuhu, duration of life. Gyatva, knowing. Etya, approached. Swaparam, his own abode. Sandadhe, fixed. Manaha, the mind. Translation. King Khaṭvāṅga was unconquerable in any fight. Requested by the demigods to join them in fighting the demons, he won victory, and the demigods, being very pleased, wanted to give him a benediction. The king inquired from them about the duration of his life, and was informed that he had only 1 moment more. Thus he immediately left his palace and went to his own residence, where he engaged his mind fully on the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport. The example of Mahārāja Khaṭvāṅga in performing devotional service is brilliant. Mahārāja Khaṭvāṅga engaged himself for only a moment in devotional service to the Lord, but he was promoted back to Godhead. Therefore, if one practices devotional service from the beginning of his life, surely he will return home back to Godhead, without a doubt, asaṅkṣaya. In the Bhagavad Gita, the word asaṅkṣaya is used to describe the devotee. There the Lord himself gives this instruction. This is the first verse of the 7th chapter. Maya saktamana parta yogam yunjan madashrayaha asaṅkṣayam samagram mam hyatagyasati tatchanu. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Gita 7.1. The Lord also instructs, Janma karma cha me divyam evang yo veti tatpataha jakva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One who knows in truth the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Those who are reading along, you can see I added a word in there. Just as that was done to other verses such as 934 in 83, when it was revised and the word "become my devotee" was missing from the translation, and several others. So whenever Prabhupada spoke on this verse, before we complete the purport in a minute, he would almost always emphasize that point, that you have to know the birth and activities of Krishna in truth, because there's all kinds of ideas about Krishna in India. But it has to be truth according to what it is. So that it's in the verse here, tattvataha. So we'll proceed. Therefore, from the very beginning of one's life, one should practice bhakti yoga, which increases one's attachment for Krishna. If one daily sees the deity in the temple, makes offerings by worshipping the deity, chants the holy name of the personality of Godhead, and preaches about the glorious activities of the Lord as much as possible, he thus becomes attached to Krishna. This attachment is called asakti. When one's mind is attached to Krishna, maya saktamanaha, one can fulfill the mission of life in one human birth. If one misses this opportunity, one does not know where he is going, how long he will remain in the cycle of birth and death, and when he will again achieve the human form of life and the chance to return home back to Godhead. The most intelligent person, therefore, uses every moment of his life to render loving service to the Lord. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So before we continue, just this famous story about Khaṭvāṅga. He's a great example of someone who learned how he had only a few minutes, a second to live, a moment to live, and therefore he left the heavenly planets, I guess, where he was fighting with the demigods, alongside the demigods, and went to his own place, and then he practiced devotional service and went back to Godhead. But how could he do all that in the moment? It's inconceivable. The word Mahurta can mean more than a moment. Oh, demigod's moment? No, that's 48 minutes. He had about an hour that he could plan, so he took himself. That, I think, there's some other translations of the Bhagavatam. Anyway.
It says Mahurta, you're saying something?
Mahurta can mean a moment.
So
Mahurta, definitely Mahurta. Definitely Mahurta. Well, that it can be a moment, and Prabhupada mentioned a moment here, but it just that in the context of what happened, he had a moment, a moment later he's dead, and rather than having time to, practice a little chant, 48 minutes worth of rounds, whatever. Okay, so did I do Om Jnana? I did. Okay, forgive me. My memory's going. All right, so this is, let's just focus on this pastime of Khaṭvāṅga. There's so many other things that happen in these verses. Again, this is kind of you can see that there's hardly any purports here, right? Which means that the acharyas hardly didn't comment on these verses very much, the ones that don't have purports. Otherwise, Prabhupada would have mentioned. So I don't think, there's the whole section has been kind of hair-raising, isn't it? You've got the Brahman eating, devouring like a cannibal, and then this, the wife burning herself. There was all that was bones. So somehow she lit those bones and jumped into it. So there's a lot of things going on here, but there's some very important lessons that we come up on, and then they get the commentary, and Prabhupada wrote the comments here on this Khaṭvāṅga pastime. So this purport is very rich. First of all, the urgency of using your time at every moment in Krishna consciousness. This is a very important point. Avyarta kalatvam. This is one of the principles that Rupa Goswami gives in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Not wasting any time. First of all, we don't know how much time we have. None of us are going to get this Khaṭvāṅga. Well, you got an hour and a half, so get going. We have to feel that at any moment, it could be our last moment. That anything can happen. We can have a huge earthquake here, or whatever, or just a heart attack. Prabhupada talks about. So that's the urgency with which a serious devotee launches into sadhana bhakti. Is that who knows when it's going to happen? So I better chant with great attention and kick out all the distractions and the things that are taking my attention away from Krishna. That's really what serious devotion means. And when you go through the nectar of instruction, you'll see that what are the things that impede devotional service. Okay, what is the first one? Atyahara, I'm sorry. Atyahara priyasascha padalbo niyamagraha janasangas talauryam cha shadvi bhakti panashiti. So all of these are distractions. You indulge too much in eating, you eat too much, then you're distracted by that. You can't perform your sadhana because you're sick, or you're running to the bathroom, or whatever it may be. And so and not only that, but it is a instance in which you're planting a big desire seed in your heart. You're getting it. You may form a habit of doing that, because it's so it's wonderful prasadam or whatever it may be. So even prasadam, of course, when we first come, we should eat so much that we just waddle, because we're so addicted to other things, we have to become addicted to prasadam. But that's a preliminary phase. At a certain point, atyahara, to eat moderately, what you need. Priyasas, to become too involved in very hard effort in order to get something material, whether it's money or a position or whatever it may be. That's also out of the realm of devotional mood. Prajalpa, which is a huge one. This is the age of prajalpa. You don't even have to be with anybody to be immersed in prajalpa 24 hours a day. I learned so much on my walk. I try to say good morning to everyone, as Prabhupada did on his walks. Bhakti Sundar Maharaj, he gave an account of when Prabhupada was in Venezuela or Mexico, I think it was at first. And he was on the beach with his morning walk, and people would come, and he would say good morning, and they would say buenos dias. So after 1 or 2 times, he asked them, what are they saying? They're saying good day, buenos dias, So next time Prabhupada said buenos dias, because that's what the people expected to hear, So there's an exchange there. People are benefiting by saying good morning to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know if they're benefiting by saying good morning to me, but anyway, that's what I do. So, but then there's half of the people or more. Well, some of them have dogs, which sometimes take up the whole, they and their dogs, and sometimes it's dogs. It's not just a dog. 2 dogs, even 3 dogs. That's almost 4 dogs, because people are professional dog walkers. When you have 4 dogs, they're not your dog. So anyway. So if it's too much, the sidewalk, I get into the road a little bit because I have that beautiful bike lane there, so you're pretty safe. But then there's people, guys just walking along, and so I say good morning. And so that's, when they don't, but then without that, they mostly have the phones. They'll have the phones and the earplugs and the things, and they're in conversation. I can't say good morning, they're in a conversation. So the point is that this is the age of mass distraction. There's so many ways to be distracted, even from your ordinary life, what to speak of Krishna consciousness. So the biggest one is prajalpa, because our main means of advancement is sadhu sangha and Krishna katha, the most obvious and most important of which is Krishna's holy name. So, but to get involved in hearing and participating in mundane talk just fills the mind with all kinds of mundane impressions and things and modes of nature, and it's breaking your focus on Krishna. And niyamagraha, this is a very important one. They're all important, but this is unique, and it has 2 meanings: niyama agraha, niyama agraha. So niyama agraha simply means, I think I got this right. If I'm not, you can correct me, Ramapani. Is simply to not be careful, nicely performing all the principles of devotional service, becoming slack in your sadhana, not showing up, you're showing up late, really late. And so that's niyama agraha. But niyama agraha, I may have been mixed up, but the other one is to be there, but to just go through the motions. You're not really, like this is why I always emphasize for anyone who's listening, to try to learn the meaning of all the Bengali and the Sanskrit that we sing every day, because it's a whole different experience when even you're hearing the Sanskrit, sangsara dhavana lalita loka, you should feel the heat, you're in a forest fire, and not only that, but that very first line should awaken your sense of gratitude. I'm not going to say attitude of gratitude again. I say one, But that's, gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and your own spiritual master for taking the trouble to make Krishna consciousness available to you in such a way that you would be attracted to participate and take it up. It's a great gift, and it's also a great austerity. So we're in this forest fire of samsara, birth and death, old age of these threefold miseries. And his tranaya, it's a long A, by the way, because the tendency is tranaya, but tranaya, he's delivering. How? By pouring down the cloud of his mercy. That's another metaphor of the first verse, right? Tranaya karunya ghanaganatvam, having the nature of a cloud of mercy pouring down the rain and extinguishing this forest fire. So it's a wonderful experience, you know, to hear that and sing it every morning and meditate on it. We're meditating on it. So if you don't know the meaning of the words, you know, then it's difficult to get focused. And it's not that difficult. Our friend Eddie, we have the Eddie and Ferdy, right? So Eddie, he bought a whole bag of songbooks from the BBT and gave it to me. And that's the way there's a pile of them in there. We had a pile, but I have some of them at my home because there's not room in here. So borrow the songbooks here, look up the song, the samsara, spend some time. If you don't have a songbook, you can look it up online probably. And study those words, because then it's a more fulfilling experience to go through. It's a meditation. The first few verses, you know, the essential thing is of samsara prayers that he's delivering us. But how? By preaching Lord Chaitanya's mission, right? Mahaprabhu, Kirtan, and Nritya Gita. And then also deity worship. Deity worship. He's doing it. He's worshiping the deity, and he's cleaning the temple, and he's engaging the devotees in doing that. And what comes with the deity worship? Prasadam. That's the fourth verse. So this is all how we become devotees. It's a daily experience. And then after that, into his own esoteric personal relationship with Krishna. You know. So it's a wonderful, wonderful meditation on the spiritual master, and it really enthralls the mind. It really fixes the mind. So that's one way. That's the opposite of prajalpa. You know, this direct glorification of Krishna. So these things have to be avoided, and you know, and then in this way, then Prabhupada makes this wonderful point. He directs us to the first verse of the 7th chapter. Now, the first verse of the 7th chapter is important because it's the first verse of the middle 6 chapters. When you read about that, Prabhupada said the middle 6 chapters of the Gita are the essence of the book, and the others support that. You know, so what is that first verse? It's the verse that comes after. I mean, there's no mystery after the last verse of the 6th chapter, but that last verse is essential, right? Because he's encouraging Arjuna there, who learned all these things about this Ashtanga yoga process, and then says, no way. It's impossible for me. Chantalam himana Krishna pramati balabhadra. The mind is so flickering, very powerful, like the wind, like a hurricane wind. I can't control it, even by this means you taught me. So Krishna said, yes, it's difficult, but by practice you can succeed. And Arjuna was still pessimistic. So he said, even if you fail, you'll take birth in a wealthy but pious family, or even a yogi family. So he's giving all this reason. But Arjuna still said, oh boy, I don't think it. I'll be like a riven cloud. I'll give up my Kshatriya dharma. I'll go off to the mountains, and then I'll fail in both fields. So finally, Krishna stops trying to convince him that this is a process for him, and he gives that famous verse: "Yogi namabhisa." Of all the yogis, Madgaten, those who are always thinking of me within their heart and abiding by me, abiding. Bhagavan doesn't say abiding with me. That's a biblical thing. It was added by one of the first editors. But abiding by my instruction. You'll see if you look it up. So, and is always worshiping me with great and transcendental faith. This is bhakti. This is all bhakti, But you're always thinking of me within, because of love. He's the best yogi. That is my opinion. That is my conclusion. So Arjuna breathes a deep sigh of relief. And then the next verse, which is this verse Prabhupada quotes, Maya Sakta Manaparta. Now I'm going to explain how your mind can be attached to me and taking full shelter. How by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So Prabhupada focuses, if you look at the actual Gita verse, on that last word, Shrinu. And then he explains that whole section in the first canto, starting Shrinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shavani. I won't go into detail of that. But all of this is about, we're now away from, eating the Brahmins and all of this, And Prabhupada is talking about essential instructions of us taking up Krishna consciousness seriously. And he quotes his famous verse, Janma Karma Tame Divyam, which I'm campaigning to have, again, added that word tattvataha, in truth, because I did research. Practically every time Prabhupada explains this verse, he quotes it in a class or in other purports. He mentions that word, in truth, or really, actually, because there's so many ways of misunderstanding Krishna's Leela. We're all aware of the upper sampradayas, in Bengal, right? The sahajiyas. So they're thinking of Krishna's Leela, but they don't understand it properly, in truth. And so they're taking, it's Krishna's Leela with the gopis as a nice model for our pastimes, so-called pastimes. I remember there was one lady here who used to come, this is at least 10, 15 years ago now, and she would quite often come to the classes, receiving the kirtans, And one time I had given I've been giving these Gita classes forever, and she had not a question, but a comment. And she revealed where her wish was at. My understanding is that Krishna was, came to show us a model of how to lead our own lives. Right, that's a doorway into all of it. He danced with the gopis, so I can be a gopi and like that. So I didn't say anything, but I must have looked pretty scandalous because I didn't see her after that. She saw that she wasn't going to get anywhere with that idea. That's a standard, I think, gateway to Sahajiya type thinking. Oh yes, we have to imitate. No, don't even imitate it in your dreams. If you read the Bhagavatam, one should not even imagine doing Krishna's rasa dance. It's way beyond us. So understanding Krishna's birth, his activities, divine birth, and in truth, if one actually does that, Veti Tattvata, then when he gives up the body, he comes to me. In other words, this way you can go back to Godhead. And therefore, now this is Prabhupada finishes the purport in the essential paragraph. From the very beginning of life, if possible, one should practice bhakti yoga, which increases one's attachment for Krishna. This is something that sometimes we forget, is that we're trying to increase our attachment to Krishna more and more. And the more we do that, everything follows naturally from that. Because attachment to Krishna in completely selfless way means that you're pleased if you can do anything for his pleasure. And there's no doubt you can understand from him directly, from the Gita or from his representatives, what will please him. Well, what will please him is that you chant Hare Krishna, you become regulated in all the things that we do for sadhana bhakti, and you help others, especially those who are, serious about Krishna consciousness. Those are also people we should help to be Krishna conscious, and we should be helped by them to be Krishna conscious. But in addition, also try to give and introduce Krishna consciousness to those who don't know anything about it. So that's the whole preaching movement, which is, you can see how it's so nicely arranged that the very act of preaching, chanting Hare Krishna and giving the books out and explaining them and so forth, is itself a meditation on Krishna. So it's part of sadhana, helping you, but at the same time, it's giving Krishna's mercy and giving Lord Chaitanya's mercy to others, which is the most pleasing thing to them. And when they're more pleased with you, then they'll, enlighten you from within and give you inspiration how to act for your own benefit. And like as was discussed last night, why is it that people break their New Year's resolutions? It's actually very good, because that's like what we call a perverted reflection of being determined to be Krishna conscious. People think, okay, I deviated mostly from their diet. I got off my diet. Now I'm going to definitely give up, 4 cupcakes a night. No, I'm just going to do 3. I'm going to do, okay. It's on a material platform. But that idea of resolution is there, determination. how to become resolved and determined and fixed in devotional service. That's really the holy grail, if you will, for advancement. And so much of it comes through association. In fact, Prabhupada explained in one lecture, I remember, that's why we call it Society for Krishna Consciousness. Come together, hear, chant together, take prasadam together, serve together. That's the essential thing. So I'd like to share this one verse, and we'll explain it a little bit, because it's so critical for understanding how Krishna consciousness can be cultivated amongst us. Some of you, hopefully most of you know this verse already. Satam prasangan mama virya sambido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana krata. Chaddoshanad ashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramisthiti. So this is part of, those of you, maybe there's a few here, maybe you haven't heard about it, that I discovered several ashtakas in the Bhagavatam. Discovered it means that I found that there was this nice, if you read the Bhagavatam carefully, you see there are certain sections that are complete lessons in them themselves. You know, the 9 yogendras, they all have an individual emphasis and a unique instruction. So this is by Kapila Muni to his mother, just beginning its instructions to her. 20th chapter of the third canto. 20th chapter, I think. And, no, it's 20th verse of the 25th chapter, I'm sorry. So he starts, I'm not going to go into detail, but he describes the importance of redirecting one's affection. Because, you know, the thing is, we forget, affection and attraction for someone or something is an impetus for serving that thing or getting more involved in it, you see. So he says, one has to turn one's affection from materialist to the sadhus, to sadhus. Who are the sadhus? And he defines that. Basically, devotees who are, because they're pure devotees, they're tolerant, they're merciful, they have no enmity toward anyone, and they're interested in trying to make others happy through giving them Krishna consciousness. That's the sadhus. So after a few verses of that, it describes how do you become a sadhu, of course, by pure devotional service. Then he describes this verse, and he describes the benefit, what happens when you really are serious about sadhu sangha, you see. So he says, satam prasangan. First of all, the word is not sangha, but prasanga. This word prasanga has different meanings. It can mean strong attachment. Pasangam majaram pasham. These are the ropes which bind us here, are our strong attachment to material things and material experiences. So that very attachment has to be turned toward the sadhus. He doesn't say turn toward Krishna at first, he says toward the sadhus who will give you Krishna. And ultimately that attachment will be toward Krishna and his devotees together. So then he describes who the sadhus are and how they got that way through pure devotion. And then he gives his verse. So prasanga here means not just associating, but meaningful association. Prabhupada would call it, so one is hearing, because the main thing is hearing from these sadhus, among sadhus. And it's hearing with ardent attention. This is another way Prabhupada called this word, shushusho. You see, shushusho shadadhanasya vasa. With ardent attention, submissive oral reception. This is maybe the most famous phrase. But it means not spacing out. Really, this is why if you fall asleep, you got to stand up, right? So, ardent hearing amongst real sadhus, satam prasangan. So Krishna speaking in the form of Kapila Dev. So it's mama virya sambido. One will hear conversation about my heroic activities. He's speaking as Krishna. Which are bhavanti ritkana rasayana, a life-giving elixir for the mind and the ears. Rasayana, he said, bhavanti rit, heart, karna, rasayana kata. Rasayana is like a life, it brings you back to life. And then what? Tadjoshanat ashu, by practicing this, by employing this means very quickly. And what is it? An apavarga vartmani. Now, does anyone remember how the connection between apavarga and liberation? You know why it's apavarga vartmani? What are the apavargas? Ramapati, give me the apavargas. Yeah. So in Sanskrit, you have these consonants divided into groups, and they're called vargas, right? So there's the pa vargas. They're named according to the first letter of the group, right? So the first letter is pa. So each one of these stands for one of the miseries of the material world, things that keep us here. So the first is parishrama, very hard work to survive in this world. Shrama means very hard work, labor. So that's the first thing. That's a big part of material life, the hard struggle for existence. Parishrama. What's the result? Painila. That's the pH. So much that you're foaming at the mouth. I remember Prabhupada, like he's giving, sometimes we see the horses with the foam, the race horses at the end, they're always foaming. So really working hard, right? And then the next word is B, right? Which stands for two things, bandha and also bhyartata. Bhyartata means like frustration or something like that. What is it? Uselessness. So even though you're struggling so hard, you're not making any progress. Or bondage. You're remaining bound up to this material world by all this, hard labor for material things. And then, of course, BH, which it stands for Bhaya, fear. Because the fear of death, the fear of being evicted, the fear of not paying your bills. It's full of fear. It's this world. And finally, M. Guess what that stands for? Mrityu. Yeah. Death. So, but this is abhavargavartmani. This is the path of getting free from all of those. You can only get free by getting liberated, and of course we're going to get liberated by pure devotional service. So by practicing quickly, Ashu, on this abhavargavartmani, you develop these things. And this is the essence of the whole thing. Shraddha, ratir, bhaktir, anukrimashati. Step by step, you develop your faith in Krishna, your faith in the process, your faith that yes, I can do it. That Krishna, all of these things have to be there for you to be enthusiastic moment by moment in devotional service. So Shraddha, Rati, attraction to Krishna, and then Bhakti, which here Prabhupada explains means loving devotional service, love of God. Step by step develops. So it all comes from the association. Now, when we open up Prabhupada's book, we should know that's a critical association. We're associating, say, Bhagavad Gita, you're associating with Krishna. He's non-different from those words. And that's why it's nice to chant the Sanskrit, even if you don't memorize it, because that's the language he's speaking. And of course, Srila Prabhupada, who's explaining it. So that association is key. And that's why the books form the essence of our association, these classes. These classes are critical. Prabhupada established them as soon as possible. Because we come together, we hear and discuss, and we become enlivened in the performance of the rest of our service, which may be so many different things that we do. So that's so Prabhupada says from the beginning of life one should practice. So this is like an echo of Prahlad. He's preaching to his friends from birth, from childhood one should practice. And that's why it's so nice. Sunday night you see these young Indian kids. We had a couple here. One of them was trying to get into the tambourine. She didn't know how to play it, So I stopped what I was doing and I showed her. Okay, she was trying to play. But they're right in front, the deities. It's wonderful. So that's a great advantage to be born into a devotee family, obviously. But even without that advantage, you can come into a devotee family. This is a devotee family, and we should have each other's benefit and each other's advancement also in mind, and see and encourage others in certain ways. Like I always like to give out shlokas. Here's one I haven't heard in a while. It's easy to understand. Krishna, Rama, Mukunda, Vamana, Vasudeva, Jagadguru. That's the first line. Krishna, Rama, Mukunda, Vamana, Vasudeva, Jagadguru. Then some more lists. Matsya, Kachapa, that's the turtle. Narasimha, Varaha, Raghava, Pahiman. So he's asking protection from all of these different Leela avatars. Krishna, Rama, Mukunda, Vamana, Vasudeva, Jagadguru, Matsya, Kachapa, Narasimha, Varaha, Raghava, Pahimam. Now he's describing who offers their obeisances. Deva, Danava, Naradadi, Munindra, Vanja, Dayanide. O ocean of mercy. All the demigods, even the demons, especially when they die, they offer their obeisances in that way. Deva, Danava, Narada, etc. Adi, Munindra, the greatest munis, Vanja, they all bow down to you. Munindra, Vanja, Dayanide, O ocean of mercy. Devaki Sutta, oh son of Devaki. Devaki Sutta, Dehi me tapapada bhakti machan. Please give me unflinching devotional service to your lotus feet. Beautiful prayer. This is from the Mukundamala, I think. Mukundamala Stotra. Prabhupada started translating that. There's two books that he started and never finished. Mukundamala Stotra and Narada Bhakti Sutra. Now you never hear so much from the Narada Bhakti Sutra. It was a very nice, but you can read the whole book, or each translation. There's little sutras, it's about 85. But it's a complete lesson in Bhakti he gives there. He started it, but never completed it. But Mukundamala, he started first when he was in India. In fact, in the first Bhagavatams, I have one of my most precious possession is a set of those original Bhagavatams, not a facsimile, but a set that he brought over on the boat. I picked it up in the BBT. I actually stole it. Forgive me, Krishna. But no one was claiming it, so so, and in the books, other books by the same author, he lists that Mukundamala, because he had begun it. He had the 12 verses done with the commentary. And when just a little anecdote here, and then we'll wind up. We finally finished the Bhagavatam. I say we, myself, Gopi Pranam Prabhu, and Riddhananda Das Goswami, and we had a very nice support crew, which I don't know what name are, but the composer, the designer, and everything. So it took us 6 years, from 83 to 89. And in 89, we're still living there, that temple was there, but what to do now? What books should we do? So there was a meeting. Some other, I think Jai Vaidamaj came, and they had a meeting there right in the temple. And, well, what should we do now? What book should we translate? Well, it came up, one of the books that was planned was the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. That's mentioned in a purport in the Adi Leela. If you want to understand Krishna consciousness, you have to read this book, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But Prabhupada never translated or began it. So that was also translated by that was Gopi Pranam's first project. But I suggested in the meeting that we complete 2 books that Prabhupada began. And these were the ones, Mukundamala Stotra and the Narada Bhakti Sutra, which we did. And how do we do it? Well, Prabhupada did 12 verses. So Satsut Maharaj, he was doing the commentary, and Gopi Paranadhana did the translations and helped, other verses he wanted to quote. So that's how those books were done. But Prabhupada loved this Mukundamala, this famous verse, Krishna Tvadiya Padapangata Panjarantam. Prabhupada would sing this verse. And actually, after he almost died with a stroke, it was a miracle. He survived in 67 in May. He had a stroke. He went back to India. Devotees were afraid he wouldn't come back. He went to Vrindavan. But they were writing him, please come back, Prabhupada. We need you so much, so much. So he finally appeared. He left in about July or June, and he came back in December. And when he arrived back in the San Francisco airport, there was, I think, some video of it. It's just fabulous stories. So. But anyway, during the period of convalescence, he thought he would stay in America. They tried to give him he was chanting this verse as a song, and it's a famous verse. If I just explain it to you, you'd probably recognize it. Krishna Tridiya Padapangaja Panjarantam. Oh Krishna, please let the lotus, the swan of my mind, be entangled in the lotus of your feet. Like a swan gets into the roots of the lotus in the lake. Because if I try to wait, at the time of death, my voice may be choked up, and I won't be able to chant your verse, your name distinctly. So let me die right now when I'm in good health, and I can do like that. So that verse became well known. It's there in the Mukundamala. So anyway, this is a very nice purport, and it gives us a good, as always, a very good lesson. One has to be very serious about Krishna consciousness and do those things which will help us to become more and more attached to Krishna, more and more attracted to Krishna. All right, it's late. I don't want to hold you anymore. If anyone wants to leave, they're welcome to leave. But if there are any urgent questions, comments, either locally or remotely, I can entertain maybe 1 or 2 of them now. Okay. All glory. Oh, we have one. Oh, yes.
About the history of the king who became a Rakshasa, and I haven't read this section, but I was wondering, was his body transformed into a Rakshasa form, or did he maintain
It doesn't seem to be. It just says he was going to devour the Brahmin.
Yeah.
But apparently, you don't have to have that form to have the Rakshasa mentality. I mean, practically all this meat eating that's going on is near that. People aren't eating, other people. but they're eating the cows constantly. So they're going to suffer like anything from that. So I don't. It doesn't mention that.
Okay.
That he looks
I
like
thought
a.
maybe in another section you might have.
No.
Okay.
I mean, isn't it bad enough that he was acting like a Rakshasa? You know what it looked like. Okay. All glories to the Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Dravida Prabhu.
Oh, you have a question?
I just had a comment on like when we were talking in the beginning about a moment. I feel like that can also mean movement. So as in like momentum. So just something of importance causing a moment.
Oh, a moment being an alternative, like movement? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, originally it also means movement, like momentum. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting at, but can you write to me about it? It sounds like an interesting idea. Dravida 108.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah, just write to me, and I'm interested in the question. Okay.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.